This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
And thank you for joining us today. With me is Richard and John. There we go. We got them in the same picture today. Yeah. And everybody's getting prepared for their Thanksgiving. I know we record this on a Monday afternoon, but this will go live to our viewers on Thursday evening. So John, I'm going to throw you a little bit under the bus here. What are you thankful for this year?
Well, I'm thankful that I'm thankful for my friends, you, Richard. I'm thankful for my family. I'm on a political note. I'm thankful that the powers that we let be are screwing up so repeatedly and so badly that more and more people are seeing their true colors. So I'm feeling as if there's some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel. That's not an oncoming train. I'm especially thankful for my health. So I've got a lot of things to be thankful for. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. How about you, Richard? What are you thankful for this year?
Well, I'm thankful for, number one, my health, because without health, I'm worthless to myself or anybody else. Number two, I'm thankful for my family, because, those are the people you can trust. Those are the people that you can that you live with on a day-by-day basis, for better or for worse, and usually it's better. And so I'm thankful that it's better in my case. And I'm thankful that despite, as John puts it, the powers that we let be, despite their power grab over the last, the last year in particular, but really the last few decades, we still have a nominal amount of freedom of speech, witnessed by this program. We've only been shut down by YouTube on a couple of occasions. Largely, what we have to say is unfiltered and unfettered by the powers that we let be. So I'm thankful that we have managed to hang on to at least a partial remnant of the Bill of Rights.
I said I was thankful for my family and their. Did I say that? I said friends and I said health, and make sure I ditto on that, because that blood's thicker than water, and despite the fact that they drive us crazy, usually they're the reason we get out of bed in the morning and fall asleep at night with a smile on our face. So I want to make sure that gets out there as well. Yeah.
Well, to give my family a reason to watch to the end, I'll tell you all what I'm thankful for at the tail end of the show. But for now, this has been last week has been a interesting case. An interesting week in the courts. We've got really 3 trials that are either ending or starting kind of all at the same time. And we'll start with the one that's in the news, the Rittenhouse case. And what I have found astonishing is not that people have different, viewpoints on the ending, is that on what happened, or not what happened, but the outcome of the case, is that there seems to be a complete disconnect between what really happened and what some people believe happened. You can believe the law should be different and the outcome of the court case should be different. That's kind of reasonable. But there seems to be a disconnect of just literally what happened. We have a bunch of people who are now just at the end of the case figuring out that he didn't kill 3 black people. He killed 3 white people, or shot 3 white people, excuse me. And if you watched, I actually just watched a timeline overview of the case. And even I didn't know that Rosenbaum essentially was the one who started off the whole thing, minutes before the whole shooting. It was Rosenbaum who kind of kicked off the whole altercation to begin with, minutes before at a different car lot. And this whole disconnect, this whole unrealistic disconnect, I guess, between what people think happened and what actually happened is leading to a disintegration of society. What do you guys think about that?
And I think we largely have media to blame for that. The media, and this is not really new, the media has always been a refuge for people who want to want to make their view of the world prevalent. You can go back to colonial times, and there were Democrat papers or Democrat-Republican papers and Federalist papers, newspapers I'm talking about, and they each had their own version of the truth. And if you were, as Mark Twain said, if you read the papers, if you don't read the papers, you're uninformed. If you do read the papers, you're misinformed. and it's amplified in the time of social media and in the time of large corporate control of most of the major mainstream media sources. So, but we saw the media. If they were on the left, they tried to portray Rittenhouse as a vigilante, as a person who should be executed, or lock him up and throw away the key. If you were watching media on the right, he was seen as a supporter of the Second Amendment and the right to self-defense and so forth and so on. And I think that what was lost in the whole thing is what the actual trial was about, which was he acting in self-defense? The jury correctly decided he was acting in self-defense. That leaves out the larger ethical, moral, what have you question of whether he should have been there in the first place. And I have my own opinion on that is he shouldn't have been. He was a dumbass and he should not have subjected himself to that kind of danger. But he did, and he defended himself, and that's what the trial was about. And I say, goodbye to the case.
And I'll kind of echo some of Richard's sentiments. The prosecution tried to triumph for basically going to a flashpoint with a weapon, with a loaded weapon, and tried to paint that as the crime when and I agree. I think it was a bad moral decision. You don't need. Although one of the media sources that I read said, the cops are there to protect property, but the cops haven't protected property. They've let buildings burn. They've let rioters looters loot. They've let people violate laws, and haven't even asked who they are, much less arrested them. But I think, how old is this kid? He's like 18 or something like that.
He's 17 at the 17. Time. Yeah.
Gets in his car, gets a weapon and goes to, protect property, and just an accident waiting to happen. Yes, but the crime that the prosecution failed to prove is that he didn't act in self-defense. He acted in self-defense. Again, like Richard said, the moral question is, should he have been in a place where he needed to act in self-defense? And the answer is probably no. But, and it's a crazy world we live in, because the liberal press, paints him as this, this guy that went there to shoot some people. And, I would just, this is the last time I ever want to talk about this trial, because it is nice to see, the laws that guarantee us the rights to defend ourselves from violence upheld. Guarantee
we could have had a much more photogenic and camera-friendly champion of the First Amendment or Second Amendment.
But I don't think this case, any one particular case, should be a champion of the Second Amendment. It's the details of that particular case, and I think is how we should approach all these cases. And in fact, we put so much emphasis on this one case, whether it's be it for the Second Amendment or whether it's your right to go to a protest or not. I think morally, we're all kind of have some culpability in this. Is we accepted violent protests, whether it's we didn't do enough over the course of that whole summer to stop violent protests, and so this thing was bound to happen. Something like this was bound to happen, and unfortunately, it did. And what can we learn from that? Yeah. But so learning from things. In a case that is warmed some libertarians' heart, at least to an extent, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, was cleared in the shootings of the police officers. Now, they still convicted him on the gun charge, on the illegal possession of a firearms charge, but he got cleared of all the serious murder charges, the attempted murder charges. So, remember, this is the case where the police did a no-knock raid onto this house, and he fired at people he thought was a, home invasion.
Yeah, no, I mean, the jury, again, did the right thing, or the police department in not prosecutor and not pursuing the charges did the right thing and cleared him. Now, as far as the gun charge, we as libertarians, of course, would say that everyone has the right to self-defense. There should be no such thing as an illegal firearm. All firearms in the hands of someone who has honestly acquired them should, in fact, be legal. So that's a that's a crime only because a bunch of people in a legislative chamber decided it's a crime. It's not a crime in any moral or ethical sense or philosophical sense. It's simply an expression of the right to defend yourself. So, but it's good that he at least is not facing a life in jail because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the real crime here, of course, is that the police officers, I guess they're knocked off the force, but I don't hear anything about them being prosecuted.
Prosecuted for murder is what it should be.
Yeah. And they're operating under the protection of you can't prosecute a federal or a government employee when they're doing their so-called duty. That's the real criminal, the being shielded from prosecution of government employees.
Well, and we go back to qualified immunity, and I want to echo something that Richard said. That it was an illegal firearm. Was he a felon? Is that why he wasn't supposed to?
Yeah, I believe it was drug possession charges. Even at that,
Yeah.
So for us, it's even worse.
So he was a felon because of drug possession charges. Yeah,
I believe so.
See,
yes.
The thing about felons, if you do the crime, you do the time, and at the end of the time, that should be it. If not, we punish felons in this country forever after they're convicted of felony. So their sentence never ends. They can't become licensed contractors. They can't, it's very difficult to get them bonded for anything at all. So you can't really run a major small business. You can't hold elected office.
Can't vote in many cases.
Can't vote. You can't. And most felons, because they have to take low-level jobs, if they can get low-level jobs, live in dangerous areas, and they're the very people that need a firearm for self-defense more than anybody else. Yet they're prevented from doing it, and especially for a non-crime, drug possession, drug use, selling drugs, all the rest of that. That's commerce. If you substitute the word bread for drugs, then the man should have never gone to jail. And why is one product that people consume better or worse than another product? And, you can do all this moralistic crap about, we got to protect the poor, our poor citizenry from using drugs, but we don't protect them from alcohol
or sugar and too much flour.
Yeah.
I mean, there's.
Oh God, guys, don't give them ideas, please. Don't give them ideas. They're good.
Well, they've already used that in places where banning large sugary drinks and all the rest of that. It's the
they already have the ideas.
Yeah,
and
man.
And of course, the whole idea of no-knock warrants is another thing that we.
Well, I think no-knock warrants have been eliminated in almost every state. They're legal in California, if I'm correct, and they're saying. I
think they're still legal in a lot of places.
Yeah, they're still legal. They should be legal nowhere. If you're worried that the person's, forewarned is forearmed, well, that's just silly.
The only reason for no-knock warrants in the first place was because cops were worried about the so-called criminals destroying the evidence, which in most cases was the drug that they were trying.
Yeah, they were worried about the drugs getting flushed down the toilet, which means they're willing to put people's lives at risk over evidence. Which, what are you really trying to do? Are you really trying to help and solve people and save people, or are you trying to just convict people?
Yeah, and if you think about it, if it's a product that somebody can flush down the toilet and it disperses in the waterways, and you've either got some happy fish or some sleepy fish, why shouldn't people consume it? And it's it's just a mess. The whole, really, when you look at it, if you look at unintended consequences long enough, they become intended consequences. And by now, this war on drugs has gone on long enough to where it is obviously what it was intended to be, which is a war. It's a war on black people. It's a war on poor people. It's a full employment act for people, for lawyers, for judges, for cops, and for prison guards. And if you see what's happening any other way, you're not bright enough to be able to allow it you shouldn't be able to drive a car, because you're not smart enough to drive a car if you don't see that these.
You're dumber than people that have been blowing marijuana smoke for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I know an awful lot of smart people who smoke pot every single day. So it's the big lie. told over and over and over again. I think we're going to touch on another big lie that we're finally getting smart enough to see through. But I think we beat this one to death. Anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, we talked about smoking pot every day. In Rolling Stone magazine, they were discussing this. Oh, Ghislaine, how do you pronounce her name? Does anybody know?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell,
the daughter of an infamous publisher by the name of Maxwell, who ended up committing suicide rather than go bankrupt.
Yeah, her trial has started last week. They did jury selection last week, and I guess at the airing of this show, I guess her trial starts the 29th. But what is interesting is in Rolling Stones, it's the celebrities and the celebrity culture is all up in arms and all worried about what is going to come out during the trial. They're not worried about.
I wonder why. She was what she's being tried for essentially is being the procurer for Epstein. And we know that Epstein provided, or we think we know that Epstein provided willing women, let's put it that way, or girls, underage girls, to celebrities, including former President Clinton, including former President Trump, including Prince Andrew, including a whole lot of other names who are probably really, really nervous right now that their name is going to be dragged into the spotlight, into the air into the clear air of transparency as a result of this trial. So it'll be interesting to me to see whether or not this trial gets, and a lot of people in the media probably as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether this trial gets the wall-to-wall coverage that the trials that we previously discussed got.
Yeah, and there's something else to that. Richard said, probably, and let's make sure that we're very clear on this in the show. We're not stating that we have proof that President Clinton or former President Clinton or former President Trump or Prince Andrew or any of these other people, actually had young ladies procured for them. That's the rumor. And, if the rumor's out there often enough, then, chances are there's a grain of truth. But we're not saying that we absolutely know these people did that. But what we are seeing is the celebrities running scared. And, in essence, I don't know whether Ghislaine, whatever her name is, I don't know whether, she was the procurer. She was certainly close enough to Epstein to see what was going on and be complicit in, some of the things. But she's actually being tried in absentia for him because he couldn't go to trial because he committed suicide. And, anytime somebody who's got a bunch of dirt on politicians and powerful people commit suicide, no matter how open and shut the so-called facts are, I always wonder personally. Well, I guess I write thrillers too, so I wonder every time whether that suicide's a real suicide. But she's being tried in absentia for his crimes, which is wrong.
yes, well, yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, she's also being, if you believe the rumors or the accusations, she was in the room while Epstein was being serviced, to put it relatively politely, by underage women.
Yeah, and so she's either an accomplice before the fact or after the fact. She's guilty, but
could be guilty.
Yeah, could be guilty if the facts demonstrate that.
I don't know how any of these facts are going to be proved, but it'll be interesting to watch if the media actually covers this with any degree of thoroughness.
Well, we know one thing: even if they cover it thoroughly, they won't cover it objectively. We know that. For a fact.
Well, I think it'll be interesting. The trial will actually let us know what her role in this was. I mean, hopefully that's what we'll find out in the trial, is what her role in this whole kind of disgusting madness was. And maybe we can find out exactly what was actually going on, but what I do find what the way the media is or isn't covering this thing to be interesting. We're talking sex and celebrities and, and more. This should be front page news all the time, and they somehow don't. So you actually wonder how many of them are they actually going to end up talking about. I didn't intend to.
I know what a lot of people are really worried about is that Maxwell may take the stand and name names. That will, that's what the tabloids, of course, are dreaming of. and what the people whose names might get exposed are deathly afraid of.
Well, yeah, and I, when I said that, let's make sure that we don't say we have facts of these things. We do know lots and lots of numbers. We know that is it William Jefferson Clinton? Is that his name? That he visited the very suspicious island with Epstein on a whole lot of occasions. So this is the mass. It's
the circumstantial evidence is pretty overwhelming.
Pretty astounding, and I think we should probably give this one a pass at some point very quickly too, so that we can get on to some no pun intended
actually serious issues.
Serious issues. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we got a couple serious issues. Let's see. I think John mentioned this one earlier, so we'll bring it up. Doctors in England are now going to allow doctors to prescribe vape pens to people who want to get off of cigarettes because they've figured out that, vaping is better for you than smoking. Now, this has not actually come as a surprise to those of us who follow these issues, but to some policymakers, it sure is going to come as a surprise.
Well, and also the FDA has approved one vape pen here in the U.S. for the same thing, because the FDA, and all the rest of the people are finally coming around to what anybody with a modicum of sense reading anything over the last 10 years about medical news has known all along, that what kills people and gives them emphysema and hardening of the arteries and strokes and all the rest of that is nicotine is an addictive drug, and it's a vasodilator, I think, and so it's not it's not something that you want to casually do. But what kills people is the smoke, the tar, the tar and all the rest of that stuff. And I smoked for God knows 20 years and quit, and it's tough. I know. I don't judge anybody who can't, but if you can simply get the feeling of pulling something into your lungs which replaces that heavenly smoke. If anybody's smoked, they'll know what it means when I say heavenly, and allows you to titrate yourself down or dose yourself down is a wonderful thing. And all the other methods like gum and patches and all the rest of that don't seem to be as successful. But in England, where they actually don't politicize medical stuff nearly as much as we do, people have been very successful getting off and staying off cigarettes. And even if all of those people stayed on vaping products for the rest of their lives, the ill effects would be about 1% if they stayed on cigarettes. And so, the fact that it's getting in the news and the fact that the FDA is approving one here and is starting to be talked about, shame on cities like San Francisco, and I think San Jose was going to make it illegal, and probably LA, that make vaping of anything illegal. What they're doing is they should just admit that they're working for big tobacco.
Well, and I think you have to get to the underlying philosophy of those who would ban vaping. And the underlying philosophy is that we must prevent all harm to people. Even if in preventing harm A, we're encouraging even worse harm B. And the harm A that they're trying to prevent is the allure of, in particular, flavored, fruit flavored, whatever, vaping products for teenagers. And there is some evidence that shows that teenagers that start vaping end up smoking cigarettes at a higher prevalence than those who never experiment with vaping. Now, you could certainly make the argument that that's, even though there's a correlation, there's no causal. You could certainly make the argument that those teenagers who are attracted to vaping would eventually be attracted to smoking in the absence of vaping. It's a personality difference that makes people experiment with smoking anything. It's not that vaping leads to smoking. It's that a personality that wants to vape is probably going to want to smoke, want to experiment with something in their lungs or elsewhere. So the whole idea that we as a society can prevent all harms by making harm illegal is fallacious. We can prevent harms by education. We can prevent harms by telling people, our kids and others that we're close to, that these things or those things are dangerous and should be avoided. We can't prevent individuals from doing harm to themselves. We can talk a lot about it, but we can't actually do it as a society or individually.
And I want to add something Richard talked about, no causal, it might be associated with. There's some pretty strong studies out of places that have banned vaping, especially the tasty vaping products that teenagers like to use, that more kids take up smoking, and those numbers are there. So, the idea that as Richard said, that you make every harm illegal, even if harm B is killing about 1 million people a year, which is what I think smoking does in this country, and harm A would kill, I don't know what, 10,000,
Or none.
or none. Because yeah, if you nicotine's a poison. If you extract enough of it, you can kill somebody with it, but you can't get that vaping. But the same thing, we've got this fentanyl crisis going on because doctors rightfully years ago prescribed medicine for people who are in tremendous pain, and then the FDA decided to step in and prevent them from doing that. And you got a bunch of people addicted, so they went out on the street looking for drugs, and what they're buying instead of Oxy and Vicodin and everything is fake pills laced with fentanyl, and they're dying like flies. So you could eliminate that harm in a microsecond by simply allowing a doctor to prescribe opioids to anybody who could prove that they were addicted to them. Because opioids, if they were legally grown instead of illegally grown, are like any other crop, dirt cheap. The deaths would go away overnight. But because of this mixed up legal system and drug laws that we have, we're just going to say, oh yeah, we'll accept 100,000 deaths. That's crazy.
Yeah,
right,
the
I'm
desire.
Done with my rant.
Yeah, the desire to prevent harm causes its own harm, and many of the people who want to prevent harm don't even look at the harm. They won't even examine the harm that they're going to cause by their policies. And as we come to the end of the show, I'm thankful. We talk about how we're thankful. I'm thankful to John and Richard for helping us keep the show going during these times when we've been out the studio. I'm thankful for Access Sacramento and all those people down there at Access Sacramento who have worked hard to get us back into the studio. Looks like we're getting back into the studio soon, so we're hoping that comes across, and the community who watches us, lets us into our homes and into your ears and into your brains every week. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my family who has helped me through the last 7-8 months of my health issues. Richard talked about his health, and it's been a strange health journey for me these last number of months. And our friends and family, our libertarian community who supports this is my thanks to them, my thanks to all of you, and to my mother. Thank you for all you do. I love you, and to all of you, please remember to love everybody.
Thank you very much, James.
Thanks, James.
Thanks for the closing sentiment. This time of year, it's great to try to remember the things that we need to be thankful for.